Hello everyone and welcome to the video. So just the other day, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure All-Star Battle R, they announced their final DLC character for Season Pass 1, but they also announced there's going to be a Season Pass 2. And I'm not going to spoil the last character of the first DLC just in case you want to view it on your own. You can find the official trailer for it. But I do want to talk about my predictions for the Season Pass 2. They already announced the parts that the new characters will be from, as well as their rough release window. So I want to talk about that today in this video. So the parts that they've given us are, the first one coming out is going to be a Part 5 character, the second character is going to be from Part 4, and the last character will be from Part 8. So, just a disclaimer, there will be spoilers for these parts because I'm going to be predicting characters from it, so if you don't know the parts that well, and you don't want spoilers, I would probably recommend tuning out for the parts you haven't seen yet. So yeah, let's get into it. But before we do that, don't forget to like, subscribe. So the first character releasing will be from Part 5, and my number one prediction, as well as my personally most wanted character from Part 5, is Morioh. I think it makes a lot of sense because he's the last member of the crew in Part 5. He's the last main character, pretty much, that isn't already playable. So I think he makes the most sense out of most of the characters from Part 5. And I know his stand isn't really combat-oriented, but it's a video game, and there's a lot of ideas they could do to make him really fun to play, even if it's not super lore-friendly. But I think they could take some liberties and make the character fun and still true to the lore of the manga and anime. So I think a good idea would be maybe something similar to Bedman from Guilty Gear, where he has special moves, and depending on the location that he used them at, basically he can recall them. So basically, let's say he does he has a generic stand rush, and he activates it in the middle of the screen, then it will leave a little marker there, and he can later reactivate it, so he doesn't have to be in that exact spot. And also it'll activate a little bit faster, and he doesn't actually have to go through the animation. So you can call it back, a stand rush will replay pretty much, and then he can jump up and combo them or something, get a little air combo or something like that. And so I think something like that could work with Moody Blues, or they could even work it into a counter-like character where basically he counters moves and then can replay them later. Let's say he counters a stand rush from Jojo, then Moody Blues can transform into Star Platinum and copy that move. Or I think maybe they could just get a little crazy with it, and basically, as your opponent does special moves, it'll actually remember their location when they used it, what move they used, and then you can replay it. So, let's say someone shoots a projectile from full screen, and then you just, Moody Blues just automatically has it remembered because it's something that happened in the past. And let's say, you start comboing them, and then you have a projectile instantly come flying in from the other side of the screen, and it kind of juggles them back towards you so you can continue a combo. I think that would be really fun. And I think with his supers, they could probably make them counter-based, maybe? And give him a cool cinematic super or Moody Blues replays, I don't know, something, and gets a little crazy. But that's my ideas for Morioh, and I think he would be a really fun character to play if they implemented him well. And I think they have a lot of potential in a lot of different ways they could implement him, because I think his stand, even though it's not a combat-based stand in the anime and manga, I think it would be a very interesting character to see implemented into a fighting game. Another Part 5 character that I think is pretty likely, and I think we could see as the DLC character, is Morioh from La Squadra. I believe that's what they're called. It's been a while since I read or watched Part 5, but I think it's La Squadra, right? He's I think, the last important member that's not in the game, because we already have Risotto, Prosciutto Pesci, we have Gaccio, and I feel like Morioh was the other, really memorable one, the one who had the stand Babyface, where he could basically, summon, the baby that, learns stuff, as it, goes on and, as it lives, pretty much. So I think he's pretty important, so I think he's pretty likely for that reason. And I think he would be a unique character. I think he could play where he either is, a puppet character, where he controls, himself and then Babyface as well. Or they could even have something where you actually just play as the stand, but maybe Morioh has, voice lines, or maybe he's in the background, on the computer, or whatever, teaching it stuff, and it's not he's not interactable, but you just see him just because I don't know, it'd be cool to see him. And then you just play as the stand, and then maybe either he can level up through different mechanics, maybe his level 1 super is just he levels up and he the stand grows up like it did in the manga and anime. Or they could maybe even do it something where he counters stuff and then he levels up, or I feel like he would have a level up mechanic of some sort. Or they could just make him a puppet character where you play as Morioh and then have a Babyface to control as well. I think either one of those would be really cool to see in JoJo. And also, I feel like he would make sense because they have a lot of the other main members of La Squadra in JoJo already, in All-Star Battles, so I think he would be a good pick as well. So the last character I have written down for the Part 5 slot is, this one might surprise some of you, but I think Doppio could be a character. And you might be wondering, like, Diavolo's already in the game, what are they going to do as Doppio? But if any of you have played Heritage for the Future, the old JoJo game, made by Capcom, they had Shadow Dio, which was almost like a spoiler-friendly version of Dio before you knew what his power was. So I think that this would work similar to that, where basically it would be like a limited Diavolo, but they could make him his own unique character, and obviously he wouldn't just be like a joke character and be weak, but there's other ways they could make him, implement him, where I think, he would basically fight, like, probably with no stand. He wouldn't even have a stand mode. But I imagine either through a super, or maybe just his stand button in general, will have attacks from King Crimson. Kind of like how Diavolo, or the boss, granted him, you know, King Crimson's arms in the anime and manga. Or how you'd call up the boss and be like, please, like, can you send some assistance? Like, I think that would be a cool super. Like, he calls the boss, then he gets powered up a little bit and gets, like, the arms of King Crimson. And King Crimson will come out and do attacks with him, but it's almost as if it's not even his power, you know? And keep it realistic to how it was portrayed in the anime and manga before the twist was revealed. I think that this would be a really interesting mechanic, and I think they have a lot of potential with this, and also I just think it'd be cool to see Doppio. I really like Doppio as a character before they even revealed the twist, so I think this would be a cool way to implement him, and I think it'd be a big opportunity for a unique character out of all this, and maybe his level 2 or his level 1 could be an install where he bulks up and actually turns into, like, the Diavolo when, I believe it's the fortune teller, like, calls him out on having, like, multiple personalities, and then he, like, hulks up pretty much and gets really bulky, and he chokes him out. Like, they could even make that a move or an install super or something like that. But I think there's a lot of potential for a Doppio character, and I think it'd be really cool to see a character that works like that in All-Star Battle. Now, moving on to the second DLC character of Season Pass 2, it's going to be a Part 4 character. So I think there's a lot of candidates here, because I feel like in All-Star Battle R, they already have all the important main characters, important villains, and they even have, like, side characters already from Part 4. So I feel like this is really going to be a hard one to predict. But I do have a couple frontrunners that I think are more likely than others. And the first one up I have is Yuya Fungami, the user of Highway Star. Now, the reason he's my number 1 pick is just because in my mind, he's the one who sticks out to me the most as the characters that aren't already in. He just sticks out to me the most, and I feel like he would fit in pretty well. I don't know what they would do with him. Maybe like a stand-off mode that, like, sends out the feat mode of Highway Star to chase you and maybe poison you or debuff you. And then with stand on, he just becomes more of a generic, like, close-range stand user. I feel like they could get some unique ideas. I don't really have anything off the top of my head on how he would work, but he just feels like he would fit in pretty well with the Part 4 cast they have going already. My next candidate for Part 4 DLC character is Miki Taka. He's the alien who has a stand, maybe? That's called Earth, Wind, and Fire. He's able to transform into basically anything, so I feel like he would just be an interesting character. They could do whatever they want with him pretty much, and give him a very unique moveset. And also, I don't know, I feel like he's a mysterious, like, character. I liked him. I thought he was cool in Part 4. He doesn't really have a fight, per se, or anything, so I feel like it'd be a little weird. But, like I said, they can get creative with him and do whatever they want, pretty much. And I feel like a lot of people remember him. People, like, are always discussing, is he an alien? Does he have a stand? Is he just an alien? Or is he an alien with a stand? So I feel like it'd just be an interesting character to have in the game, and they could get really creative with what they want to do with him. So that's my second pick. My third pick for Part 4 character is Miyamoto, the stand user of Enigma. So this one's a weird one because he doesn't really fight that much, but I feel like if they put him in the game, they would also have a lot of freedom with this character. They could make him a counter character where he holds out the paper, and if you punch it, he can, like, I don't know, seal your arm or something. I don't know. They could get a little creative with it. Or maybe they could just have something where, like, he'll throw out, like, paper, and either, like, a gun will come out and shoot you, or, like, he'll throw out the paper and a car will land on you. Like, that could be a super or something. So I feel like they could get creative with him. He has a really unique design. I like the way he looks. And I think he'd be a dope character. He's another one of the stand users of Part 4 that stick out to me as a character that's not in the game yet, but I remember him pretty fondly. And I liked his, his stuff in the manga and anime. So I feel like he would be a good pick. And I already have, like, an idea. Like, his level 2 super could be he counters you, folds you into a paper, or, like, puts you in the paper pretty much, and then does the scene from the anime and manga where he puts you in the shredder and all that. Like, that could be a counter-based super. He puts you in the paper and then puts you in the shredder, and that could, I don't know, I feel like that's a pretty self-explanatory level 2 super they could give him. So that's my third pick. Now, as I said earlier, Part 4 just has a lot of characters they could choose from, because at this point, I feel like they're just pulling minor villains or minor characters, because they already have all the main characters in. So I'm just going to list off a couple I think are a little likely, like, they could show up, and I feel like they could be unique to play in the game and a funny character if they were added. So first off is Buggy, and yes, the rats. I think that they could make the rats a very funny character. They have like projectiles and stuff they can set up and shoot you. I don't know, it'd play like Iggy and just be weird. I just feel like it's a funny character. Like if they really wanted to troll us, they could add that character in. I don't think it's super likely, like I said, but it's a character that could be added. Next up is Kanedaichi. I'm probably butchering his name, but the user of Superfly. So this one I think would be interesting because he'd have either you would have to play on the stage that is the giant, what is it, a radio tower? So you would have to play like inside the radio tower and you're not allowed to leave it. And basically I could imagine him like jumping off the walls and he can send like projectiles at you or something, like, because you're fighting inside of it, like you're caged in there with him. Or they could make it something like he's just an enormous character and you're like outside of it and he's like shooting projectiles at you, but that would be a little like unfun. I feel like it'd be cool if you were inside the tower with him and he's able to like jump off walls and stuff, and he's able to like jump around the screen and send stuff at you, and you kind of have to fend from all angles there. I think that would be a cool idea for him. Next up is Tonio. So Tonio the chef with Pearl Jam. I don't know how they would implement him, but he's definitely a fan favorite, and I think they could do some funny stuff with him. I know, like obviously he's not really a combative character or anything, but they could totally make some awesome stuff if he was added to the game as a playable character. Next up is Hazamada, the stand user of Surface. This one would be interesting because I feel like he'd almost be a gimmick character where he can like either steal your moves or maybe Surface, or maybe an actual puppet character. Like the stand's literally a puppet, right? So maybe he actually is a puppet character and you control both of them at once or something like that. Or maybe he can copy the opponent somehow, something like that. Next up is if they want to go really crazy, is turn the Ghost Baby, Shizuka Joestar, into like a full-fledged like time skip, like part 4 character, but like age them up, and it's just like, you know, she's a fully grown invisible stand user. Like obviously for gameplay, just make her like the character and then she can turn invisible with her moves and stuff. I don't know, if they wanted to go crazy off the walls, they could do something like that. I think that would just like, people would pop off for that, right? Like I would be excited. I would be really excited if they did that. So I think that'd be a crazy off the walls pick. And then, like, other than that, there's still plenty of characters I didn't mention they could add from part 4. Like, I don't know, they could add older Joseph. We can have Joseph from part 2, Joseph from part 3, and then even older Joseph. I don't know, they could do whatever they want with part 4. There's so many characters, and I feel like we have all the important ones, so they can just go wild with whoever they want at this point. So, those are my picks for part 4. Now, the last DLC character of Season 2 of the DLC is a part 8 character. So, this is the interesting part. The easy cop-out character is obviously Joshu. He was in Eyes of Heaven. They already have, like, his model. I think they can just bring it over like they did with some of the other characters. I believe that's what they've been doing. They could just do that, but I don't think anyone likes Joshu. His stand is a little cool, I guess, and they could do some unique stuff now that Part 8 is complete and they actually know what everyone's full capability of their stands are. That is something they could do, but please, please don't put Joshu in. But I think he is the most likely candidate, so I am listing him here. Now on to the characters in Part 8 that people hopefully will like, or not be disappointed in, is I think probably most likely is Jobin. He's been requested for a long time to be in the games, and for a long time in the manga, spoilers, again, spoiler warning, people thought he was the main villain of Part 8. So I think that it would make a lot of sense to have him. Even if you're getting spoiled by playing the game and you haven't read Part 8, I guess you could maybe think he's the villain or something. It might like be an in-game fake out for if you ever read the manga or the anime comes out and then you see that who the real villain is, of course. I think Jobin would just be pretty likely. He'd be pretty simple, I feel, gameplay-wise. He'd probably have a heat mechanic similar to SEDC, who's already in the game. But I feel like he's definitely a fan favorite and people would like to see him in the game. So I feel like he's probably the most likely. And I wouldn't be mad seeing him in the game either. My next prediction for Part 8 character is Rai Mamazuku. I believe that's how you pronounce his name. He's the stand user of Doggy Style. So his thing is that he turns into like rope pretty much, or like he can like unravel his body pretty much. Not turn into rope, that's a different character. But this would be pretty similar to Jolene, I feel, which is why I feel like his chances might be low. But to me, when I read Part 8, he felt kind of like the main Joe bro, if you don't count Yasuho. I mean, Yasuho's definitely the Joe bro, but like Rai was a dope character. I really liked him in Part 8. So I was a big fan of him. I think he would fit in well in a fighting game, and I would love to see him in this game personally. He's like my personal pick for this part, and that's mostly why he's included, because I think he would be dope, and I like him as a character, so I would love to see him in the game. Now, onto the last character I think is likely for Part 8 is Toru. The only reason he's at the bottom is because I feel like he's just the newest character, and I'm sure they have plenty of time, I'm sure, to work on a character and get him in. But I feel like the other characters are just more likely, but I do think it makes a lot of sense if they only have Josuke in this game, Josuke 8 I should say, is to add Toru, because it's the main character and the main villain. They'll have interactions, it'll be dope, and I think people would love to see Toru in the game, maybe even more than Jobin in the game, to be honest. And I think it just makes sense to have the main character and the main villain if they're not going to add Joshu. And I feel like I don't want Joshu, but like I said, he is kind of like the early part Jobro, and if they want to avoid spoilers, I guess they just add Joshu, right? He's an early character, not too much to spoil about him or anything. But Toru, I feel like, would make the most sense. The only problem is, how do you turn his stand into a fun fighting game mechanic? I feel like to implement him accurately to the lore would be to make it so if the enemy approaches you, you start getting killed. But how do you turn that into a fun fighting game mechanic? I'm sure they could find a way, obviously. It might not be super lore accurate, but I think the character would be fun, and it'd definitely be dope to see him in a video game. And I would love to see this happen with this character if they do add him, is add a, like, final, you know, now that the manga's over for Part 8, is add a final representation of Josuke 8, and actually update his moveset. I would love to see that as a free update, but if that doesn't happen, they could actually just add him as a DLC character, but I would be a little upset if the final DLC of Season 2, this rumored Part 8 character, is going to be just another Josuke. It would just be annoying to pay for another version of Josuke when his moveset honestly should have just been more complete on the initial release of this game. But if they do add Toru, I feel like that would add a great reason to add in free Josuke, updated moveset. Maybe make him a different character so old Josuke isn't like taken away if people liked his playstyle. But it would be nice to see updated special moves, especially Soft and Wet Go Beyond. So those are my predictions. So that's the video. If you guys have your own predictions, feel free to leave them in the comments. I love reading ideas about fighting game characters or who you think is cool to see in a fighting game, especially for an anime game or manga game, you know. I'd like to see who people would want to see in the game. Obviously, this is my personal picks as well as who I think is likely. So if you guys, you know, even if you like Joshu, let me know. Maybe there's fans out there, but, you know, I don't like him. So either way, thank you guys for watching. If you think there's any improvements I could do in the video, or if you liked it, or you just want to let me know, you know, feel free to like, comment, whatever. But if there's any improvements, feel free to comment, definitely. I'm always looking to improve, so if there's anything you guys think I could have done better, let me know. And thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys all in the next one.